So hello and good evening, very late evening for you guys out in India, but we are streaming across the world. I'm actually here in the UK, and this is the 9th edition of the interviews and conversations with Dr. Anu Mehta with our authors from I Am Every Woman, which was a book that was written by 15 authors from across the globe who have contributed to the book. Each woman had an untold story, an unsolved pain, and we connected during the pandemic with our most vulnerable part of ourselves to create this amazing book. And today, the interviewee is my lovely friend, Louisa. So let me tell you a bit about Louisa. Louisa is the oldest of 3 girls, and she was born in Germany, then moved with her parents to the Canary Islands. When she turned 18, she spent 1 year in London working as an au pair and in a pub. She did 1 year at university in Germany, studying economics, Spanish, and English. As part of that course, she came across to Nottingham University and stayed in Nottingham. She actually got a degree in economics from Nottingham University. She was a marketing manager and worked for both advertising agencies and as a marketing manager for companies. She stopped working a year after having her first child. She has 2 children, a son, 26-year-old, who has studied biology and since graduating traveled the world, which was rudely interrupted by the pandemic, and a 22-year-old daughter who has just finished her honours in Spanish and international business degree and has an offer to do a ski season in the Alps this winter. Since she left the father of her children, she's become a qualified life coach and is in the process of setting up women-only walking holidays, talking and eating holidays based in Mallorca. And now, as you have a little bit of background of Louisa, I'm going to hand you across to Anu Mehta.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Christine, for that wonderful insights around Louisa. And thank you, Louisa, for being here. Thank you, Sabak Khan. Thank you, Farhan. Thank you, Penny, for being here. Your presence helps me because women should never be alone. Children should never be alone. Husbands should never be alone. It's when you don't see other faces, it kind of feels, we believe that we are alone. Thank you, Sabak Khan. It's really, she says, thank you, ma'am. It's a pleasure to see. Now, I was reading through your story again today, Louisa. We did a rough, I wouldn't call it the rough, like really understanding each other, talking with each other. And I did record a number of small snippets of yours, which I will open today for everybody to keep looking at it. I was amazed with that, how you began your story and ended your story. It felt as if you didn't want to be the broken piece and you wanted to be put together. And you had the goal to kind of fit in everything. And then I thought to myself when I read it the first time, oh, how beautiful is that? You know, in Japan, people do this, is what you said, that people believe that nothing is broken and that they should get it together, they should file it, hold it, and put it together. But when I was reading it today, it struck me that even in that broken part of yours, you didn't want to hurt anyone. You wanted to be complete and whole, and you wanted to come back. You didn't think of any other color but gold. It's almost like if that broken piece was kept somewhere and your children walked over that broken piece, it would hurt their feet. It would there could have been a small bit of it that could have, the broken bit that could have gone into their feet and hurt them very badly. It's almost like when you put it all together and you make a beautiful item of it, you kind of have not just protected yourself, regained your composure, and made yourself look like the golden girl, but also you made sure that you didn't hurt anyone. Could you please highlight and tell us how did you protect, how did you make sure that people were not getting hurt? What's going on here?
Thank you, Anu. Hi, Anu. Nothing like starting. Nothing like starting completely different to last time. Yeah. I think I was thinking about the why me, why some people are more susceptible to being abused than others, and perhaps there is that part in the psychology book, they call it doormats and people pleasers, and they're all really horrible words. And you're going, so you're putting the fault on our feet for trying our best to keep everybody happy. But I think some people really do want to make everybody happy, and in that process sometimes lose themselves. And I certainly don't want to hurt anybody. And I think whilst you're independent, I mean, as Christine has so kindly sort of introduced, it's not like, sometimes we think that people who get abused might be weak or something like that, but we're not weak, we're strong. I have lived in 3 different countries. I moved into all of them by myself, except for Spain. I have an education. I was financially independent. So what is it that allows somebody else to get to you like that? And so once you're in there, you don't kind of notice it till it's too late, and you erode some of your thing. But what I always knew is that once I had the children, they were always going to be the most important bit in that puzzle. I always knew that the children that I would do everything to protect them. Some people might consider that what I've done wrong. They would have said they should not witness abuse. But as I often have said to them, it's the best I can do right now. And it was the best I could do to protect them. And when it comes to this gold, and it's not that you try to be perfect or you try to be golden. It's about the fact that we all have a story. We all have hurt. We all have pain. But somehow that makes us who we are, and it keeps, and if we can live through that, we are still beautiful despite having been broken along the way. It's, sometimes in our society we think, well, if you're broken, we throw it away. Well, no, we are broken, but we are beautiful, and we mend. We can be mended.
Thank you. Could you say that again, loudly and slowly, so that people who are hearing, and this is not just about women, and right now there's so much going on in Afghanistan and rest of the world, where people are definitely feeling broken, and like the parts of them can never mend again. Could you say what you just said, those beautiful words, once again, so that anybody who's hearing them understands that even if you're broken, you are not wanted. There is something more important going on there. Could you please? Thank you.
Yes. I wish now I was 20 and I could remember all the words I said 2 seconds ago. But it's a fact that everybody has a story, everybody has a background, everybody has a pain. We are all broken in different ways, but we continue, and we need to see each other that it's not a crime to have suffered or to have been abused. It's not one's fault, and that we are beautiful regardless, not beautiful in a physical way, but in a person way. We are all beautiful, and we are all our experiences. And the gold isn't something that makes that, it's just that it means it holds it together, and that we have that opportunity to hold ourselves together as well. Some people suffer atrocious things and they still smile, and they still manage to make the world a better place. And that is what that whole imagery was about being whole despite being broken.
Wow. I mean, guys, being whole despite being broken. I would write those words in bold.
Yeah.
I really would, because it just means that we have misunderstood what broken means. So, Louisa, for many people who haven't read the book, please go out there and read this book. It's available on the Amazon. It's called I Am Every Woman. And we have these two women with hats behind them. Both of them are the authors, and they are amazing stories that they have written over there. So don't miss out on reading this book. Let's hear your story. When you talk about abuse, what really happened? Because I don't want people to sit down and assume that this happened and that happened. What really happened with your words? What really happened? Because you say you're a strong woman. You've changed countries. You've done this. What kind of abuse are you talking about? And why are you talking about kids? So let's get the story out there. Thank you.
Okay. You think sometimes, I think I was only discussing that recently with a very good friend. As women, we are very much accustomed to being nice, to focus on others, to want to please. We shine our light brightly on the loved ones and then forget to shine it back on ourselves. I can only imagine that something like that must be happening in a lot of women's brains. There are a lot of very strong women who would say, no, you go near me, you're dead. But there's also a lot of women where it happens very slowly. We use the frog analogy, where you go into the cold water and that fire is put on, and slowly but surely, by the time you realize it's flipping hot, it's too late to jump. And that's more or less what happened to me. You know, you come to England. I think we said that in the last interview. I said, I believe that everybody's good. You cannot comprehend that somebody would want to purposefully damage somebody. And, you know, although I in the book, I described my not so much my relationship with my parents, but the past, it was very much to describe, for me to try and understand why I have two sisters. They both work, they both went to university, they both continued working whilst raising children. So we have the same backgrounds, strong backgrounds, independent women who were afforded an education. And then I was sort of thinking, well, is sort of that empathy possibly already in one's DNA? Perhaps it's a pain from a previous life. And then you're going, well, that only came to me when I was writing the story. I was thinking, okay. But then I'm thinking, I look at my mother, and actually my mother was incredibly brave for the times when she found out my father was unfaithful. She left. Yeah, she had strong boundaries. So obviously I did not quite manage those strong boundaries, or perhaps I had them, but I was frightened. I don't know. So I met my husband to be at university. When you're at university, you're busy. Then you go and work. You're busy. You have money. You're busy. You don't think. You might see a few red flags, but you're too young to even notice that they're red flags. You're going, okay. No, you let them go. It's that little one thing, that first thing you let go, that keeps that door open to more. And then you have a baby, and everything changes. Your hormones change. You don't sleep. You're not going to work the first 6 months, and you go. And already then it happens, that anger. It's as if he was angry that I was giving time to my child. You know, he would sit on top of me if the baby was crying, so I would not go upstairs to console the baby. And make me hoover after I had a cesarean because you'd come back home and the carpet wasn't clean. I'm barely moving. Never mind managing to hoover the carpet, you know what I mean? And then you get stuff, little by little, things happen and they get worse rather than better. And then after a year, I stopped my work because I could not look after a child who didn't sleep, after a husband, after a house, have dinner parties every weekend. Never mind myself. By then I wasn't even worried about myself anymore. Just could not hold it all together. And then, of course, at that very moment, you become dependent. You have a child and you have no income of your own. And then once, also for those who believe that I married rich, when I met my husband, he had nothing. He had nothing. He had holes in his shoes. I gave him the money to start the first company. So everything we achieved together and was ours. But it was all in his name. Like happens in very many marriages. All the financial power, even here in the West, is with the husband. And so you're going, so things happen, and then you think, well, he's stressed. My mother always just say, you always say he's stressed. Well, he's stressed, but then they're not shouting at other people. They're not holding knives to other people, you know. So they know what they're doing. You know, it's directed at you. It's violence to control and have power over you. And often I know that there is domestic violence that goes the other direction. And there will be many men who will complain about this. It's not as prevalent. It is mainly men abusing women for power and control. There are also emotionally immature men who are abusive, who cannot control their anger, but they tend to be abusive to other people too. Often a domestic abuser is a very, very fabulous outside the house and not quite so fabulous inside the house. Why? I don't necessarily understand. So is it our own boundaries where we didn't just put our foot down right at the beginning? Would it happen anyway? I know super successful women who are judges who would go and do important things all day and come home and look at their husbands to see what they were saying and doing wasn't upsetting them. So it's not even about financial independence or about being weak. I think it's deeply woven in society, this fairly misogynistic male abuse towards women. And that's just before you start talking about cultural and religious limitations and countries where it is acceptable to violate and abuse women. And here it's illegal, but how exactly do you enforce that? Domestic abuse happens behind closed doors. Rape in marriage happens behind closed doors. 2015, a law was introduced against coercive control. If you cannot prove domestic violence, how on earth are you going to prove coercive control in a court of law? Somewhere I have a figure. Rape within marriage was still legal up until 1992. 1992 in this country. Yeah? How do you prove you've been raped at home? How exactly do you prove that? Or this coercive control, 2015. But in many countries, it's still outside the criminal law. And even if it's illegal, it's tolerated.
In my country, there is no law for rape within marriage.
Yeah. So how do you? So if there's no supportive community outside marriage, where do you go? If you're not financially independent, if you have no rights, exactly what you're going to do. So each person needs to look at their own situation. So what happened within? So you think I'm big, Christine? My husband is bigger. you're not gonna, it's just another good head taller than me. You haven't got the physical presence to fight against that, even when you look to the outside world to be a strong, big woman. And even if something like shouting at you, if somebody shouts at you right in your face whilst foaming, that is abusive. Somebody pokes your arm for so long that it's so blue you can't move it. That's physical violence. When I was holding my baby on my lap, just before we went out, the best bit is we went out afterwards. I was holding my child on my lap. It wasn't not a walking child, so I would have had to put it on the floor. So below 15 months. And after he destroyed the kitchen table and took my arm and was trying to break it across my knee, he pulled a knife and came at me. At that point, you'd be very pleased to know, I shouted at my son, I said, run to the neighbors. I took my daughter and I ran to the neighbors. The neighbors didn't really want to be involved in that either. I mean, who wants to be involved in that? Nobody wants to. And when I was in court, even though I have doctor's reports, there would not be enough evidence. Apparently, the only way to truly prove all of this would be to call out policemen every time that something happens, to get a police record. Which white middle-class woman is going to call the police to come to their house every time they get beaten up? It just isn't going to happen. And in your country,
I'll tell you why I'm laughing, because imagine first you let your arm almost get broken, and then you have to have enough strength to go and pick up the phone and give a call and tell the cop, please come and help me. I'm dying. And this has to be done number of times, even before someone will look up and say, something is wrong with your husband. Rather, they would say something is still wrong with you, that you haven't pleased him enough and you made him mad enough. You did that to him. And so he's probably justified doing what he did to you.
But also then you've got the police. Then suddenly you've got social services on your back. Before you know it, you have other people wondering whether suddenly it becomes a mother again, a good enough mother and are protecting your children. I don't know what social services is like in your country, but in this country, you don't want your children being looked after social services either. So it's a catch-22. You're damned if you do, damned if you don't. The last real bad physical violence that happened was when, and I will never forget that, because my child was old enough, she was standing there she was 5.5, and my husband was going, I'm going to kill you, you bitch, as he was beating me up. I was bleeding from my nose, my glasses was broken, I fell through the wall, I broke my arm. And you know what I can't forgive myself? I went to bed, curled up in a fetal position. I did not ask my daughter how she was. All I could say while it was happening was to say to her, go into your room. But she wouldn't. She was just standing there. And then they have the audacity to say that they were too young to remember. If you're 5.5, you remember. And then they have the audacity to make them believe they didn't see that. Right, I'm going to have to breathe for a second.
Yes. Take your time. Take your time. Hold it here. Thank you.
We're with you, Louisa.
You're all
because my husband is no fool, my ex-husband, but at the time my husband, he realized at that point, and when I went to hospital, all they asked me was about my children, whether my husband was violent with my children. There was wanting to be looked after. So you minimize it all because you're thinking, shit, I'm going to lose my children here. Sugar, sorry. And then, but he knew what he done now was, there's a name for it that escapes me right now, will come back. But it is punishable by law in this country. You know, you still have to prove it was him, that you didn't just fall by accident and all that kind of thing. But so I did get him to an anger management class that he had to go to for 10 weeks. He did go. I phoned the man, but he never told him why he was there. He used to come to me and says, you're making me feel like a criminal. And I'm thinking, yeah, it's because you are a criminal. This should not be happening. And but from then onwards, although it still took me 12 years, but I did go to solicitors who could not reassure me that the children would stay with me, that it would be a judge's decision making. And when I tried to get rental accommodation, I couldn't because I didn't have an income. So nobody would rent me anything. So then I just spent time, so that's where the planning comes in. To anybody in this situation, I would say, keep yourself safe and keep your children safe. I learned to hide the knives. I learned to have arguments with my back to an open exterior door so that you always have an escape route. I had a passport, keys, money in a handbag, always. I think that's the most important thing. Once that last thing happened, I realized that you could end up dead if you misjudge something. And you go, right, it's now time. It's time to find out how I can keep myself safe and what I can do. And so I'm sure it does erode, because it erodes your soul little by little, because also you're now living a life where you're protecting yourself all of the time, which is not very healthy either. So I come from a privileged background. You know, I'm in a country where I could leave, where there aren't cultural and religious pressures not to leave. And I still found it so hard to leave. I don't know whether I use my children as an excuse or not. Having been through the legal system for the last 4.5 years, I think I did the right thing. And for those out there who sort of think, sometimes we just do your best, just do your best. And if you can do your best, it's getting out in the morning from your bed and just looking after your safety and after your children's safety, so be it. And don't let anybody tell you what you ought to do, because you know exactly what you're dealing with. But take every help you can get, because you will need it. When you do decide to leave, you will need every help you can get. And I was very fortunate. I had a lot of very supportive children and very supportive friends, of which my sister is one and Penny is one, who were willing to listen to me for days on end, hours on end, the same shit over and over again, and who were able to support me practically when required. So that was a very long answer to tell me what happened. Did that answer your question, Anu?
Thank you, Louisa. That was from your heart, from your tears, from your soul. And thank you for being candid. And I'm sorry for your tears, but I just want you to know that in your honesty and authenticity, there are many others who can open their mouth and talk authentically about what's happening to them. So here, I would really request Penny. Penny, you have been a supporter for Louisa.
Yes.
I really thank you.
No thanks required. But thank you.
Can you give us what's the role of a supporter here? What do they need to do to keep people who are in sadness alive and kicking and going?
I think a lot of
How do you support?
Is listening, isn't it? It's being ears when required, or a shoulder when required, or a distraction when required, because sometimes you just all talked out, aren't you? And you don't want to go over the same thing over again. And very often there weren't answers. I couldn't give answers, only the support of being there to hear. And sometimes just to do something completely different, so we don't have to focus on it all the time. But no, just sympathy, empathy, many cups of coffee, many glasses of wine, and and walks, and even within because our families socialise together, so you know, even within those family gatherings, just having those few moments separate to talk and let off a bit of steam. So yeah, just just that love for a dear friend, and frustration that I couldn't help anymore. But yeah, it's listening and just being there, isn't it? We do that for each other. It's a reciprocal thing.
We do. But it was extra difficult for some of my friends because they're new. But I had asked them that to be pleasant, in inverted commas, as long as he was not unpleasant to them, in which case obviously they had their own boundaries to deal with, because I did not want to be isolated. So I needed to have my friends continue to come home. And that must have been quite weird sometimes.
Yeah, knowing what an absolute horrible person he could be. He was very charming to us. One of the classic cases of being charming to the outside world. And I also found myself trying to appease the situation many times. I had conversations with him separately as well, where I would hear his side of the story and trying to tactfully diffuse those situations and not provide any more ammunition. But yeah, it was complicated times, weren't they, over many years. And just, but that promise, and I know we talked numerous times about the children being your main concern, and the fear that a person in his position could throw as much money at the law as he wanted to in order to prove you an unfit mother or whatever else might have happened, which wouldn't have resulted in the outcome you wanted. So that was always your overriding concern, and which you did admirably, and the children understand that now. You know that, okay, they were in a difficult situation themselves, a horrible situation at times, but ultimately they had you, and they knew that there would be a day when you would be out of there, and we all rejoiced when that happened. So yeah, a lot of that kind of support. On a practical level, I'm a trained hypnotherapist, so we have had some relaxation sessions and hypnotherapy things and things to listen to, and NLP techniques. So that was more practical, but I think the main thing is just being there for each other.
So Penny, what was your biggest frustration where Louisa is concerned? What was your biggest frustration while helping her?
Having to be there in the family situations and knowing an element of what was happening, not showing that was something that I was aware of, still being friendly and polite and having a nice time. We holidayed together and all sorts, didn't we? So that, I think, was the biggest frustration, and just not being able to give a good enough argument that of course you won't be able to do that. Of course you can get away because you knew best. So you know what the situation was. I couldn't actually do anything. That was always the real frustration.
Thank you, Penny.
All my friends thought I was crazy when I said it will take 5 years. They go, nah, it can't. No. We are 4 years, 9 months into it, getting very close to the 5 years. And I don't think anybody could believe, but that kind of man, that's not one to lose. It's that simple.
That's the whole thing. He cannot lose. No matter what the outcome, he can't lose. So that's the driving force behind all that. And he's created his own reality, hasn't he? I think he believes the lies that he says to other people.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So Louisa, this question is for you. When a man of that caliber creates a facade of being so worthy, so nice, so enough, and you create a facade of so not being enough, you're a strong woman, and you both were basically in different places. One saying, I'm enough, look at me, I'm not wrong, I'm right, I need to win the game. And the other one saying, oh, it must be my fault. It must be my fault, I haven't done something right. What finally made you push yourself out of these stories and really take that stand and say, that's it, I don't take this anymore. 33 years is not a joke.
No, it blooming well isn't. I think there's the thing of the person who's enough, the person who isn't enough. I think we did this facade thing about, they don't come to you and say, I'm going to be mean to you. They come to you and say, life is going to be fabulous. And they're charming and they're interesting and they're intelligent. You know, they're go-getters. It's not like they go, hey, look at me, I'm going to be hurting you. That's not how it happens, is it? So they reel you in, And then it happens little by little, but they erode your confidence. If they were always mean, you'd probably leave sooner. But when they realize that possibly they've overstepped a little bit too much, they give a little bit. So that, but in that reprise, because you're now tired, you're just so glad he isn't angry. You don't have time to think, you're just relieved. And then something happens and they're angry again. And now you're just putting your head back down. And now you don't think because you have your head down and you're just hoping to survive. So it's a constant cat and mouse, backwards and forwards. And I think you just plain get tired. You get exhausted. You lose yourself. I've got pictures of towards the end. And I compared that now to pictures now. And it's like the light had gone out. Like you're going, I was still going through the motions. I was doing the best I could, but the light had gone out. And I think that first, that last act of violence was a wake-up call where I'm going, if I'm not careful, I'm going to possibly get killed and possibly my children. But then you go, if he ever touches my children, that's your next excuse. So he doesn't touch your children, so you're lucky. And then my children went to other people's homes. And I think they started to realize that what was happening in our house is far from normal. So they start to help you question it. And my daughter particularly, she always went, that's just not how it goes in other homes, Mommy. If somebody were to talk to my friend's mother like that, she'd throw a shoe at her. Well, I wouldn't want that either. I don't believe in violence in any direction. You talk more about it, and when I then they have during one of the holidays, and we always had good holidays because on holiday times I was capable of giving myself totally to him. He could do what he wanted. He was happy. It was fine. But then one holiday we went costeering as a family, and I described that incident in the book. And you nearly 50. You're jumping off rocks, and the first rock was high, and I'm thinking, what are you doing? The second rock was extra high. You know when your stomach goes all the way to your mouth, and you go, I don't really want to do that again. Children are already in the water, husband is behind, guide says just take a run at it, you take a run at it, and you go, yep, this was not good. And I think that was in a way a wake-up call, because I'm thinking, suddenly it's sort of like, only you can really look after yourself. Nobody else is going to do it for you, and you need to take control of your life. And in that trying to heal from the broken back, I became stronger. And I started, because I had to look after my body, and in looking after my body, I had started to have time to look after my soul again. I started to run. My sister started running with me. My sister's a marathon runner. She was happy to run with me at 3 steps running, half step walking, 4 step backwards, you know. She basically stood beside me and took me running. She went with me on the first run ever, a 5K charity run. For most people, that's nothing. I'd never run in my life. So for me, that was a huge psychological achievement of, if you take a step at a time, you can run 1K, 2K, 5K, potentially a marathon. I was never motivated enough to run a marathon, so don't worry, I'm not going to run a marathon. But that sort of knowledge that everything could be broken down into little bites, into little steps, and just keep going at it. So I looked more at solicitors. I started to say, I made sure I saved money. I did not save enough money for the legal fees because I never thought they were going to be so enormous. But I thought it was going to take a certain amount of time. So I'd saved enough money for that. Then I had to take a loan out to pay for the legal fees and raid my pension. But, you know, I still managed to do it. And again, I could. Many people don't. When I then found a house a second time around, I could put 6 months down as a rent, plus 1 month's deposit. Otherwise, they would not rent it to me either. So I had slowly but surely organized myself to freedom. But I was still hesitant. It was still scary. And even after that, it still took really 3 years. You know, it was actually then, but I had already rented the accommodation, and I said to my daughter, look, I've stayed this long. We've made this work this long. You're in your last year of A levels. So I fully understand if now is not the time that you would want to leave the family home. I'm quite happy to keep that flat open for the next year. You know what I mean? So it's there as a sort of safe pied à terre. But she said, no, she says, we'll move out now. I'm not going to university unless you move out. If I go to university, you probably will never do it because there'll always be another reason. So we moved out. So my children helped me. My son was at university by then. So despite everything, you still needed somebody else to say, come on, you can do this. You can do this. And for all women out there who think that their children won't forgive them for staying or for leaving, it's surprising how forgiving children are. As long as what you do is the best you can do, and you are always open about what is happening and why it's happening, they will forgive you. That's the thing about my daughter to me. And this is not to say how wonderful I am. This is entirely to prove that they will support you as long as you do your best and always love you. And she said, thank you for letting me have the best childhood under not the best circumstances. I never look back feeling like my life was bad because you've always made it so good. I'm so proud of you for being the strongest person I know. I don't know how you've been through all you've been through and still managed to be better and wonderfuler and brilliant, but every person I've ever met. In the end, do your children also want you to be happy? I don't think I ever lied to my children. And I did my best. And so are an awful lot of people out there just doing their best. If you can find yourself in the position that somehow you can move out, that somehow you have the strength to take that first step, and you have the strength to keep it going for 1, 2, 3, 4 years, I promise you, the light at the other end, it's blinding. It's just amazing. The peace, and the good times my children and I have had, just simple things, just being able to sit on a settee and watch a movie sounds banal without somebody walking in angry, of just knowing that you're safe. It's well worth all the effort and all the fear and all the pain if you can do it.
Thank you. That was beautiful. I still have a question which has been running in my head. I read that your grandfather or was it your father? One in the family, they lost everything. Or was it your grandmom who lost everything?
My mother's parents, my grandparents.
Yes, they lost everything. And then they kept comparing your mother with the child who wasn't there, and yet they were able to. So what caught my attention was that your grandparents lost everything and then we created everything again. You lost everything and are recreating everything again. Do you think that what they did back in time and never gave up is something that is running across the generation? And somehow, somewhere, it didn't matter how many years of rubbish that they took or what happened, or they came almost killing themselves and getting bankrupt and having nothing. And right now, like I'm saying again and again, Afghanistan, we can see people are running away. 600 people in that flight. That photograph never left my head, with nothing in their hand other than what they're wearing. It sounded more like that was exactly the place that your parents were in, your grandparents were in. They left with nothing, and you left with nothing. How could you ever die when they never died? Can you explain if any of this makes any connect in your life? Thank you.
I firstly would like to point out that I don't want to be anywhere associated with the pain that the Afghanistan people are feeling. What I've been through cannot even go to their little toes of what they're going through. So I live in the West. I am privileged. And when I leave with nothing, I still had enough to feed my children. I put a roof over their heads, clothes them, and sent them to school. So it is quite, whilst I understand what you're trying to say, but often, pardon me, often the nothing we leave with are personal things. It was my grandparents when they lost everything, except obviously when the baby died, but obviously there's a lot of people whose babies die, particularly in the war. There's a lot of people die. But what they lost in the end were possessions that they could rebuild. I remember quite vividly, my father was a bit of a renegade and he did not believe in insuring anything. And he made possibly enemies somewhere. When you're young, you're not so interested in your parents' story. And by the time you're old and are interested, they are no longer there. But they burned all his houses. He had 2 properties, none of them were insured. So with 60, he had nothing again. And you're going, but but what he had was himself. What he had was a skill. He was a writer. What he had was an instinct to survive, and you build up again. And I think what he said to me was that, I mean, apart from the initial shock, what he said actually was quite liberating, because we often tie ourselves down with a lot of things to places, emotionally and physically. And I think I just might have had that conversation recently with Penny. Also, leaving 4 years ago just with a few things is also quite liberating, because you leave a lot of things behind. Again, always from the knowledge that whatever happened to me might be unfair, but I was always going to be all right. Yes, it might have been stressful, might have not been nice, but I was always going to be all right. A lot of the people in war-torn zones don't know whether they're going to be all right, and they are having to leave quite differently. Also, they're having to leave people behind that they don't know whether they'll ever see them again. So yes, perhaps we rebuild our lives. Perhaps there is something in your DNA that gives you that strength. Yet I've never seen myself as a strong person. Isn't that funny? I always thought I must have been a little bit weak to be in this place. So it is, which also made me think a lot about your other question about the 5 good qualities, 5 good things, 5 positive things, and how hard it is to see in yourself what other people see. Did that answer your question a bit?
Yes, it did. And what came out was, no wonder you waited to carry your kids with you and not lose them behind. Because your grandma lost her baby and lost herself with it. You weren't going to do the same mistake. And I also understood right now that as long as you have yourself, as a resource, and you have your talent intact with you, you can rebuild yourself from anywhere and any place. And that's a big story that you gave me right now, which I wish that we can send magically to each and every person in Afghanistan right now and across the globe, that as long as you have your soul with you, your body with you, and your talent with you, nobody can steal you away or put you anywhere that you don't want to be in. So
some people are really strong like that. You know, sometimes in those concentration camps or in Japan or something like that, where the women would sing to their children to make the horror less horrible. Some
yes.
people would go quiet. Some people would make the best out of it. Again, I'm not comparing myself to those kind of people at all, but there seems to be an awful inner strength in a lot of people to do the unthinkable.
Yes, in fact, Estonia got its freedom by singing.
I love this that.
Yeah, and they only sang, and they sang, and they got their freedom. Small place in Europe, which got its freedom because it could sing itself to freedom. So singing songs is not just because you got a good voice. Singing songs makes you get messages that you could never get otherwise. And makes them...
And it's a frequency, isn't it? It's an energy.
It becomes an integral part of your soul, like the poetries that you say, or the kindergarten songs that it always stays with you. The stories always stay with you. So here is the last bit. I would invite Louisa to say, if you were to rewrite your story right now, which you are, what are the 5 qualities you would rewrite it with?
Although you've changed the question, I shall be a politician about this. Because I thought...
she sat down and made notes, which is good.
I think I would tell, when I did my coaching qualification, at the end of it, we all had to give each person their good qualities. And then we would give them a gift. The gift was basically a positive rephrasing of something they needed to work on. It's wonderful, this positive rephrasing of things, isn't it? And every single person you did this in writing, so you didn't know what everybody was saying, yes? Every single person said, believe in yourself and your capabilities. And you're thinking, Lord, I wasn't even sure I was that insecure. But obviously, I don't believe in myself enough. And perhaps every woman, every person should ask good friends to give them 5 good qualities, write them down, have them in a book beside their bed, so they don't even need to open and see it anymore, because when they see that book, they see the love. And with that, perhaps we all become a little bit more empowered, because somewhere along the line, we have lost that empowerment because of still a lot of sexism and violence and non-equality that exists all over the world. So it's taking a lot to say it, but I'm going to say it because you have to say them to believe them. And I put them in my morning meditations, or affirmations. Apart from the I'm happy, healthy in all areas of my life, I always say, I put it in the present. I am self-confident. I am energetic. I am capable. because those are the things that I always feel I need to be more of, because I always felt I was holding back. But when I ask my friends, they all seem to think I am strong, I am resilient, I'm bold. Actually, Penny once wrote me a card. We have a fabulous girly group. Yeah, so fabulous. So it says, you are fabulous. F for funny, A for amazing, B for beautiful, U for undefeatable. I think she had to work at a word with you. L for loving, O for open-hearted, U for unique, S for sexy. And I think
I love the last one.
And I think we all need to start seeing ourselves with the eyes of our loved ones.
Wow. Okay. I'm going to request Christine, if you can please read out, Christine, the messages, beautiful messages, which I've dropped down right here in the chat. Thank you. I really, really appreciate it. I'm not very good at reading.
I don't believe that. So from Furhan, she said, just because we are broken, that does not mean we are weak and we can be mended. Being whole despite being broken. That's what you actually said, Louisa. And yes, I wrote it down as well, because that is powerful, extremely powerful. And Sabah actually said, actually, God makes us not only beautiful, but very strong and bold enough to face any situation. And then from Furhan, that was really beautiful. I think that's when you actually told your story to a greater extent than maybe we read in the book. And then Sabah Khan said again, you're tremendously blessed. You did what's best for your children. You must release the past, and you're very cheerful, optimistic, and see the positive and bright side of your life. Thanks for sharing. And Furhan has put, you are fabulous. And I just want to say, I didn't write anything, but I just want to say, just having met you on Sunday and now seeing you here, I know that, yeah, I have met a very special person in my life. And I'm so pleased that you wrote your story as well, because I think it has brought you some freedom and brought you some strength and self-belief, and just see where it goes from here. Indeed. You know, and it's something like when I left, simple. Yours was much more planned than I, but I did plan to move out of my marriage, not because of any difficult situation, but I just knew it wasn't the place for me to remain. And that whole feel of having the planning, but also accepting that you're going to leave with nothing. I left with my, you know, my shoes, clothes, and a few bits. Everything else remained in the flat. And I think I went back once to collect a couple of other things, but everything else stayed there. And that in its way was incredibly freeing, because, as you say, liberating, because it allowed me to restart. And in actual fact, I'm in another phase of restarting. When I moved from another place, you know, when I moved to the first place that I retired after I was divorced, I bought all new things, stuff. And now I've got to the point, as you all know, that I'm actually getting rid of things. I got rid of all those when I moved from that flat. And now it's a case of, I know I don't need all that because I have me. And I think, as you said, Louisa, that's the knowing that you have yourself and you are intact. And in respect, yes, you've learned from the experience that you will never go back down that route again. And you have absolutely beautiful support from your children as well. And as Anu said, having done all of that for your children, and stayed in that situation, wow, you're an amazing woman. You truly are.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Christine. And I would invite Penny and Farah and Sabah to unmute themselves one by one. And if you want, say something to support Louisa, or to say which part of the story really touched you, and it's going to make a difference in your life. I would really say this is the time to kind of acknowledge that. We also have people on the Facebook, Kanchan Todi, Justine is there, Jyoti Kothari is there, Elodie is there. All of them are supporting you, and many more who are not writing anything but are going to keep watching this, because it's going to stay online for as long as it's a digital footmark, which stays forever, ever and ever. And don't forget, guys, to go on my channel and look at these. There are many other short snippets of her story, which we picked up a week back, which was not the track I went today, because we had those, and they will be released also, so that you can actually go through that bit also of who really is Louisa and how beautiful she is. So I would really invite here, if all the three of you over here could say in person whatever you want to, and I really thank you. Thank you. Yes, Penny.
Everything that I would say to Katya many times anyway, that you know that you've always got my support. You are one of my dearest, dearest friends, and you are an inspiration. Seriously, my girls, they look up to you so much. They think you're such an incredible woman. You've been through so much, but you are resilient, you are strong, and you just shine, Louisa, you shine. And the photos that I've seen of you recently with the children, it brings tears to the eyes, because you're just glowing, and I'm so happy for you of where you are now, and will continue to be along this journey with you whenever is possible.
Thank you so much, Penny.
Thank you so much, Penny. And we have Elodie on the Facebook who's saying you're amazing and a very big inspiration for her. Justin is saying, loving listening to your story, Louisa. It's interesting how so many women didn't really see themselves for what they are, and you are bold and brave and resilient. So she's just, thank you. Farhan and Sabah, if you would like to add, and because you were hearing her for the first time probably, and if any part of her story touched you, or you felt that you need to say something to her or support her in some way, or not just support, but you felt supported by her story. Thank you.
I'll say something. Sorry, Sabah, do you want to go forward first? Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. You go first.
No, first you do.
No. Go ahead.
In my country, we would say this, pehle aap. Chaliye. It doesn't matter who goes first. Sabah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. So every word or every moment or every story, it left a mark. Every word, every moment, every story, every half smile, it left a mark in my mind and in my brain. And the best people come in your life unexpectedly, and that connect like your best friend, as we are connected right now with you. And the moment that change one day, and the day can change in your life, that change the world in one time. So that is in short, I want to say. And time is still the best answer to forgiveness, and is still the best painkiller also. So keep smiling, be cheerful, be happy. We all are behind your support.
Thank you so much, Sabah. So
anyway,
beautiful.
Yeah, Louisa, I was listening in tears, even though I read your story before from the book, but for you to have learned so much out of it, and you are so very brave, and I'm very impressed that your children appreciated what you did, even if it was the controversial what you did. And I kept thinking, that's why I had tears in my eyes, because I kept thinking of my own mother. For those of you who don't know me, I'm from Turkey. So I was born in Eastern Turkey. My father was a very traditional man. He was definitely the boss. And my mother didn't feel she was treated very well by my father. He wasn't as abusive as you described, but he was emotionally harsh and abusive. And my mother always told us that she didn't leave my father because of us. I mean, didn't want to make us feel guilty, but didn't want to leave because she wanted to see us grow. And I felt sad for her as I listened to you. She didn't have the courage to go out on her own to do it because and she was financially not so well off. She was a teacher, but she didn't feel confident to do what you did. And so for all those other women out there, it's a big courage that you put forward, and not everyone has that courage, and especially in the old times, whatever. So I really listened to you. I put my mother in your shoes and whatever. So it was very emotional for me. Thank you for sharing deeply.
Thank you, Farhan. I would like to respond to that, Farhan. Your mother will have been brave. She won't have been weak. Again, she will have done the best she could.
Yeah.
And it's not always to understand when we ourselves become really strong.
Yeah.
And you're going, why? And so we do the best we can in each situation.
Yeah. And she did the best she can, and she left all her dreams behind, and then she rationalized it to herself that she was doing it for us. And she always told us that. So we felt bad, but I felt bad for her.
You feel it. You feel it like it's your responsibility, isn't it?
Yeah.
I understand that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And I would like to conclude, and then I would like Christine to say last words before we say goodbye to each other. But I would like to conclude by saying what I like about you is you're not scared to show your wounds and your cracks. What I like about you is that even though I could see tears and emotion on your face, yet you had a smile which could change the whole personality of a place and, make the person who is dying out there with a smile on his face. You have that beautiful a smile. And that's the best makeup that anyone can ever wear. You are a winner. You are a strength. You are an inspiration. And I like the way you have covered all the cracks with gold, and you've carried yourself like the old wine, which is going to be, over a period of time, more and more expensive, more and more precious. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anu. Thank you very much, darling. It was entirely a pleasure to meet you twice, once for the pre-interview and today, and most enjoyable. Thank you.
Thank you, Louisa. So you now know that you have a friend across the globe somewhere in India.
Yeah.
Her name is Dr. Anu Mehta, and you can meet me the third time. That's okay.
Okay. Now you've invited me, I'm going to have a gap here, so I'll be knocking on your door.
Sure. You have no idea how many people have stayed in my house. I love that. And how many white and all color people have stayed in my house. I just love it. This is a very beautiful home where I have housed most of my mentors, and they've come and stayed from across the globe in my place. So I am very honored. It's a very blessed house. Yes, Christine, over to you. And that's where we'll end the program for today, and we'll meet beautiful people next week. Let's get in.
Yes. So next week, thank you, everybody. What an amazing interview. And I love the laughter that came with it, but along with a very strong message. And Louisa, thank you so much for telling your story. Again, I know it from the book, but it's been very interesting to have a broader aspect or broader understanding, which obviously isn't absolutely written in all the words, because we only had 3,000 words that we could write. So, but this book for me has brought such joy for getting to know the people, the other co-authors. There are 15 of us, and also that we are connecting with people across the world in all different countries. And we've had some amazing reviews, and people have found that they are wanting to tell their stories. And I think, or I believe, I know that's why Claudia was called to help us put this book together. So next week we actually have Malaka, and her story is called, I've forgotten.
I think something with pain.
Power of Pain. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And again, a very, very interesting story from a highly educated woman who found herself in a place that she did not expect to be. So please join us next week. And it has been an absolute delight to see everybody and hear this interview. So thank you, Louisa. Thank you, Anu. Thanks for joining us, Penny, and putting your perspective, and Farhan and Sabah. Thank you all so much. It's been a beautiful
Thank you very much.
And thank you to everybody.
You're most welcome.
Again, enjoy, listen, and absorb, because that's what these interviews are about, to help you understand and see maybe your world through somebody else's eyes, and take that strength from there. So thank you, everybody.
The last bit that I would say, if you've lost yourself, you can find yourself, like most of these women did, 15 of them. And to be really honest, they never lost themselves. To be really honest, they never really found themselves. To be really honest, they just found their strength.
Yeah.
And you can do that too. Thank you so much. Thank you for connecting.
Big hug to everybody.
Again next week. Big hugs.
Thank you.
Bye, darlings. Big hug. Ciao.
Oh, so sweet. Bye.